Hello guys, it's me Simo Urahara, and in this video I want to talk about this form of Ichigo when he was awakened his true shinigami power for the first time. Because I see it as the main form that Kubo relied on in building Ichigo's strength, especially when we read again the events with everything we learned about Ichigo's background, and also how Urahara had a big part in building this power of Ichigo. I see a lot give everything to Aizen about this topic, why it's not something accurate. Anyway, what I like the most about Kubo regarding this topic of building Ichigo's power is his foreshadowing through drawing. As an example of this form of fake whitish Zangetsu fused with Holo Ichigo. I see it as a future hint from Kubo about the true power that we have seen in the last arc, the Horn of Salvation. I can also tell you that Kubo, before the beginning of the Fullbring arc, he has in his mind the form of Ichigo when he will get back his power. He sent this sketch to his editor before the beginning of the Fullbring arc. And I say Kubo did the same thing with this form. But before we talk about it, let us go back a little. Perhaps to the beginning of the story, but this time with all the important facts about Ichigo. The most important of these facts that he is a hybrid being, he has quincy power from his mother's side, as well as shinigami power from his father's side, combined with the Asauchi who is white. Moreover, the only people who knew the truth about Ichigo were the ones who knew about Isshin's fight against White, Aizen Sasuke as well as Urahara Kisuke. And the most important one for me is Urahara Kisuke. I don't know why, but some people focus so much on Aizen Sasuke and being the one who has planned all the battles of Ichigo. Yes, that's true from one angle, but let's see it from another one. We will find that Urahara Kisuke is the one who took advantage of Aizen Sasuke in this matter. It is true that Aizen Sasuke was the one who sent the fishbone D to Ichigo, and because of that he took her shinigami powers. But that fight was closely watched by Urahara Kisuke. If he wanted to save Ichigo or Rukia, he would have done so. But Urahara Kisuke deliberately didn't enter into that battle so that he can give Rukia the Gigai to become a human being. It is true that Aizen Sasuke is the one who gave the equipment to Renji and Byakuya in order to locate Rukia, and that's what they have done. They found Rukia. But Urahara Kisuke directly went to Ichigo and made him fight Renji and Byakuya. So it seemed that Urahara Kisuke wanted Ichigo to go into battle and lose his borrowed power from Rukia so that he would activate his real powers. Byakuya destroyed the Sakitsu and Hakutsu of Ichigo's soul so that he would remove Rukia's power and Ichigo would become just an ordinary soul. But what Byakuya didn't know at that time was that Ichigo already has his own shinigami powers. And of course this information wasn't going to be told by Urahara Kisuke to Ichigo, meaning it was possible for Urahara when he saved Ichigo to tell him that you're not actually a human being and you have your own shinigami power because your dad is a shinigami. But he didn't do that because he knew that the person who should tell him that is Isshin. That's why Urahara, when he trained him, he didn't tell him that he already has a shinigami power. He just told him that by cutting his chain of fate he had to transform into a shinigami or he will be dead as a whole. The only person who has actually told him the truth is the Osan when he told him that you have your own shinigami powers. But back to Ichigo, we can say even before Rukia gave him her shinigami powers, he had an extraordinary spiritual strength. And these words of Rukia when she described Ichigo's strength in the first chapter is very amazing. She said that Ichigo's spiritual strength was so high so that it affected Rukia's senses in sensing the spiritual power of the fish pond. And Rukia's description reminded me of what everyone felt at the end of the battle of Aizen Sasuke against Ichigo. Everyone couldn't sense Ichigo's Ryatsu. So Ichigo's spiritual power, unsupported by his shinigami powers, enables him to break Rukia's Bakudo. Of course the Bakudo launched by Rukia was only number 1, but what happens when Ichigo awakens his true shinigami powers? Kubo gave us a future view of Ichigo's strength, how it will be in the distant events of the story. In this scene, Ichigo was fighting against time. The road will end either with his transformation into a shinigami or a holo. And after a short time, the holo mask began to form on Ichigo's face. We all believed that Ichigo was going in the direction of his transformation into a holo, and that's the mask was one of the signs of that. But what was happening is the opposite. The mask is in fact was the beginning of Ichigo's transformation into a shinigami, since White is Ichigo's Zanpakuto. And if you notice, this scene was the beginning of several events in which Holo Ichigo will appear in attempt to save the situation whenever Ichigo is in danger. And in the meantime, Chisai was using one of the strongest Bakodo in Ichigo, Bakodo 99 Ken. Chisai was barely trying to stop Ichigo rage with that Bakodo. And for better understanding of the situation, compare it to what happened to Quincy when he entered into holification mode. Hachigen tried to tie Quincy using Bakodo 64 and he didn't succeed in that, but when he used Bakodo 99 part 1, he was able to stop Quincy. However, when it comes to Ichigo, it was something else. Chisai was literally dealing with a super volcano. Imagine you're in front of a volcano that is about to explode, and your job is to stop that explosion. And this leads me to think that Urahara Kisuke also knew that Ichigo would have extraordinary strength, because he is simply one of the direct reasons of Ichigo's birth. He's the one who saved his mother from death. He's the one who tied Isshin to Masaki. He's the one who made his father without shinigami powers. Thus, he knows that Ichigo will have several powers within him. So I think he specially made Chisai take care of this job. Chisai used the most powerful Bakodo in the story to control Ichigo, but as soon as Ichigo awakened his shinigami powers, at that time no other force was able to stop that eruption of that volcano. So what we must take into account in this form of Ichigo is that Kubo emphasized from the beginning that the Holo is a part of Ichigo's shinigami powers, meaning that the Holo mask was never a result of the training process that Urahara Kisuke did, but the mask can be considered part of Ichigo's strength. And the same thing we said about the Holo mask can be said about the Shihakusho. The Shihakusho is also part of Ichigo's shinigami powers, because the Shihakusho is a garment made by Shinjimaru. Just like the Asauchi, it is given to the Shinigami. For example, when Gin decided to become a Shinigami, he stole the Shihakusho from one of the Shinigamis. So Ichigo's advantage is that his strength is embodied on his body, as Shadow explained when he saw Ichigo's forebrain for the first time. Also, among the other things, Ichigo in this form has not yet attained the power of his Zanpakuto. He was almost like Zaraki. It is true that Ichigo awakened his shinigami powers, but he didn't make any contact with his Zanpakuto. All he had was a broken Zanpakuto. So Ichigo was fighting Urahara at that moment with a Zanpakuto that was literally devoid of any power. And also another thing we can talk about is the issue of the sheath. Kubo said that Zangetsu and Sayafushi are the only ones who don't have a sheath, but when Ichigo awakened his shinigami powers for the first time, he had the opposite. He had the sheath, but he didn't have a full Zanpakuto. However, when Ichigo released Zangetsu, the sheath had disappeared and Ichigo's Zangetsu immediately came out in a constant release of Shikai. And from that moment, Ichigo's power entered into a constant struggle for control. Osan was trying hard to prevent Ichigo from becoming a real Shinigami. Why Ichigo's instinct desperately wanted this in order to get stronger. Perhaps this point was shared by Ichigo and White without he knows that. In the end, the development of Ichigo's power will remain one of the creative topics Kubo has done, and no matter how much we talk about it, we always find something new about it. And Kubo didn't tell us the full story of Ichigo's power. The manga ended and Ichigo hasn't yet controlled all his power, so I really want to see Ichigo in action in the Hell arc. So guys, tell me what you think about this form and see you in my next video.